Hi there, it's Mandy Green again. Struggling to speak up in meetings is probably one of the key things that I've come across as an issue for women in the workplace. So what I'm going to do today is to offer you some tools and techniques from my 15 years of leadership development experience that will help you to express yourself in meetings with clarity, with certainty, and with confidence. So let's start by talking about the fear. And you know what I mean by the fear, don't you? It's that feeling in the meeting when you're just waiting for your turn to come and suddenly your heart starts to beat and you start to break out into a cold sweat and the words just don't come. You're just stuttering and fumbling and stumbling and mumbling. So the reason that you're doing that is really simple, and it's a physiological reason, and it's simply to do with adrenaline going through your body. And what adrenaline does is it helps us to perform. That's the purpose of it. It's there actually as a fairly primitive thing to help us escape from the saber-toothed tiger that's leaping out of the jungle at us. But in a modern workplace, of course, it gets corrupted and it gets changed. And it actually gets in the way of us expressing ourselves adequately, efficiently and articulately. So conquering the fear means being able to just manage the adrenaline. And there's a couple of things that you can do about that. The first one is to breathe. And I know everybody says, oh, you just have to breathe. And it seems so simple, it can't possibly be true. But try it. You just try it. The next time you're in that meeting waiting for your turn to speak, stop, breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. In through your nose for the count of 2, out through your nose for the count of 3. In for 2, out for 3. And just a few cycles of that will find you just calming yourself down a little bit. It really helps. Doesn't fix it, but it really, really helps. So just try that next time. So the physiology is only one part of the fear that grabs us. The other part of the fear is the little voice in your head, the inner critic that says, they're going to think you're stupid. That's a crazy idea. Whatever makes you think that you have the right to say this stuff to them, they're just going to laugh. So, in order to deal with the inner critic, there are a couple of things that you can do. Some of these things work for some people better than others, but the first thing to do is to stop listening to your inner critic. It's just a habit of thought. It's just a loop that's in there from times way gone by. It's actually trying to help you in some respects, because what the inner critic's trying to do is to protect you from public ridicule. So if we look upon the inner critic as some kind of misguided child, it can sometimes help us just to deal with it a little bit differently. So this misguided child that's whispering crazy stuff into your ear, that's saying they're going to laugh at you, is just trying to protect you. But it's not logical. They're not going to laugh. You don't need protection, and you have got a great idea. When I was a senior leader, I was prey to all this stuff myself. So I've been there and I've dealt with it. So I know that these tools work. One of the things that really worked well for me when I was talking to people in public, as I built up that muscle, because it is like a muscle, in the process of building up that muscle, what I would do, apart from the breathing when I'm facing that audience, is just to have a little mantra that I would say over and over again to myself. And my personal mantra was, they're on your side, they're on your side, they're on your side. And that just helped to remind me that the voice in my ear that was saying they're the enemy, they're going to be judging you, was not telling me the truth. And they were on my side. They were all my team. They knew me well. What was I afraid of? So this is not logical, but it is natural. So don't fear the fear. Deal with the fear either by some deep breathing to steady your physiology, or by just recognizing the voice of the inner critic on your shoulder and not allowing that to take control. Make sure that you keep in control with your mantra, whatever that may be for you. The second thing to look out for is giving up your space. When we do get to speak, we allow ourselves sometimes to be overridden by others in the room. So getting your space and holding your space so that you can then say your piece is very important. So let me tell you a couple of things that will help you to do that. So the first thing is to have a clear outcome in mind and not to stop until you've actually achieved your outcome. So let's say you've done some research on a CRM system that you want to put out to the team for consideration. Before people start giving you their objections, you can actually frame your piece by saying, I'm going to talk to you for 2 or 3 minutes about what I've just discovered, and after that we'll do some Q&A. So you can kind of preempt the interruptions right from the get-go, right from the setup. The second thing you can do, if you are interrupted, is simply to say the name of the interrupter and then to say, please allow me to finish. I'm going to cover that in a moment. So for example, you might go, thanks Phil for your comments. I'm going to get to that piece in a minute, and then just carry on speaking. So don't allow that interruption. Stop people from speaking until you've said your bit. The third technique is simply to carry on over it. Raise your voice a notch, raise your voice another notch, and just carry on speaking regardless. It feels very rude because we're so brought up and so socialized as women not to interrupt other people. But this is our space and our time, so focus on getting your message across and don't allow that interruption. So last but not least is minimizing. And minimizing means making ourselves small. It's the modesty effect, as they call it in psychology, that as women, we're not supposed to make ourselves important. So we make ourselves tiny. And we do this linguistically in a couple of different ways. The first really common way is by over-apologizing, saying, I'm sorry for everything that's not your fault. Oh, I'm sorry the meeting started late, but. Oh, I'm sorry you didn't seem to have got that memo, but. So sorry is one thing. The second thing is just a little bit. That tiny, tiny little word that we use to preface what we're going to say minimizes its importance. Can I just say this? Or I'd just like to tell you about. Make sure that you're looking out for those minimizing linguistic markers. What you can do is to get people to give you some feedback, for example. So get somebody in your team, a trusted companion, a trusted colleague, or maybe your line manager, to give you some feedback on how many times in a meeting you're saying these words that are minimizing or over-apologizing. The other thing that you can do, which is perhaps a little bit less comfortable for people, but really super effective, is to actually record yourself in a meeting, and then you can hear the patterns of thought and speech that are coming out. And that can be a very, very effective way of helping you just to snip out the language. And you can practice snipping it out. It takes a little while to do, but as soon as you can recognize that it's happening, then you can start to work on eliminating it. So one step at a time. And that's the key to making this whole thing work. So whatever your issues are with speaking up in meetings, whether you're fearful of judgment when you open your mouth, whether your inner critic is unleashing itself, or whether you allow yourself to be spoken over, or whether you minimize your own contributions through inadvertent language habits, whatever is your thing, you can break that down into a manageable chunk. Analyze it. What's actually happening? How do you know it's happening? When is it happening? If you can, then why is it happening? Get people to give you feedback as you then practice to change one thing at a time. And gradually, you'll be able then to step up and start improving that muscle as you would do if you were learning to lift weights. You start small and then you build up.